things. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna try to, I got a couple people joining here, so just let me know if I miss somebody sitting at the top there waiting to be admitted.
Okay.
So it looks like we've got about 10-ish or so people online, and we've got just over 10 or so in the room here, so that's awesome. Nice to see everybody. I'll get started, and we'll move through the content today. I started a little bit earlier just because I wanted to, we might use the full time, so we'll see how we get to around that 1.5 hour time place, and we might still finish a bit early. I think my content will move us through about the same period of time, and then we can, I've got an activity that I'd really like to do at the end, but we'll see how we are for time. So I'll just do a screen share here. Oh, I saw somebody and now I can't see them. Where'd they go? Hold on, somebody's in the waiting room. There. Very good. A late addition there. Okay. Don't worry, Sheldon. It'll turn to me in a minute.
I'm asking April to say something, so it turns out like me.
There we go. Okay, sorry, I'm just trying to move the little video screen around here so that I can see. Welcome, everyone. Okay, so let's get started here. I did shift this a little bit. I think I told you guys I might do this, that I might slightly change the topics as we go through. So I morphed this a little bit from, I know we said we were going to talk about business plan, and this definitely is a part of your business plan. But I think this is the most important part of your business plan. So I want to talk more about prospecting and getting people into your shoot and working through that process. So this section is going to be on leveling up your prospecting strategy. So first of all, I just want to do a quick review from last week. If you weren't here, I did send out the video. So I think hopefully everybody that's joined us has some chance to go through that. So the business scorecard really was the biggest focus of what I talked about last week. Working through these 7 things that are here, rescoring yourself, being thoughtful about all of these categories, and trying to make sure that you know that you're in the right mindset in all of these places, building out the right components within it. And I think this is what you want to come back to on a regular basis. This is probably a really good quarterly review or check-in, is to kind of sit down and reassess each of these sections and see how you're doing and figure out how to find success in those areas. The other piece, which is so important, and this flows through life, is obviously that mindset, motivation, and consistency piece, and making sure that we are in the right headspace to work through these things. And I really do believe that at times we're going to fall out of consistency, but as long as mindset and motivation can push us through, or maybe mindset falls, but motivation and consistency will push us through. So for a period of time, if you have these structured properly, I think you can lack a little bit in one area and still find that success in those other areas, and still achieve what you need to for your business plan. So I want to talk now. Well, actually, I'll pause there for 1 second. There was some comments about homework and things like that. I think the homework I gave was quite loose, unless what I said was entirely different than what I remembered saying. I said that's what I remember. I'm blaming Shayna. So there was some comments about what the homework was, and Shayna provided an amazing list of homework, which I was like, that's what I should have said. I like it. So the only homework I wanted you guys to do was just to reassess yourselves within that, and just have a look and see where you could tweak things, and just be really thoughtful about your intentions moving forward. Obviously, hopefully you're doing more with the content that I gave you than what I'm asking you to bring back, but for the sake of this, I'm not going to really review any of that unless anybody had any questions about the content that we delivered last time. But it looks like everybody is good. Yeah. So if anybody online, you guys, please just interrupt me if I can't see all of you. So feel free to unmute and shout out, and I'll stop talking if you have anything that you want to contribute. And so let's talk now about, where does your business come from? And I want you guys in your head or on a piece of paper to just think about this for a minute. And this is a reflection on where your business has come from, like of what you've done this year, or what you've done last year, or going back further. Where has your client business come from? Is it people you know? Is it, are you really good at converting on door knocking? Is it open houses that you're doing well at? So not who's in your prospecting list, but when you're actually doing transactions, where are those clients coming from? So everybody's list is probably going to be similar, and then you might have a few extra pieces there. But what are some of, what are some of the obvious ones that are there? Repeat and referral. Thank you. Who doesn't have, like, everybody's got that on their list, right? Okay. No, I don't. That's fair. Good. Okay, that's fair. So repeat and referral comes, when do we think repeat and referral business comes into play?
2 or 3.
I was gonna say you're 3.
Three?
I'd
I
say
think
2.
you're using 2.
Yeah.
Okay, okay,
Even one referral can,
Referral.
in one.
yeah, yeah. So the referral piece could come quickly. The repeat gets pushed out a little bit, right? I remember when an agent came to me and said, I got my first, like, they're selling what they've bought. And I know it's unusual for somebody to have that happen, like you buy a condo or a house and you call the next year and say, hey, let's sell it, especially when the market's kind of flat. But so that is kind of that 3 to 5 year time frame is sometimes when that happens. Somebody's either got a promotion, getting married, they start to transition through life and their needs change. But you're right, repeat and referral, and probably then linking closely is like your sphere list, right? So to somebody like Shayna, you're newer, you're right, that's fallen down a little farther, but your sphere might be up there in terms of a lead source for you. Other kind of top lead sources.
For me, it's realtor referral.
Great,
Yeah.
good one. Yeah, that's because you're well networked down into Calgary, so you're in a great position. Good for you. Okay, anyone else?
I find it's more referral from Sphere than Sphere itself.
Yes, interesting.
I find the
I have that
opposite.
too. No, I have
Yeah,
4,
which is interesting, actually.
6.
So I think it's a very important thing that you're tracking what business you're doing and where it's coming from. And I know we've done this for years, and I remember having a lot of agents go, I've been focusing marketing over here, but when I actually look at what I did last year, it was all this. So why would I not be going and marketing more towards that? So do know it and do look at that and assess it constantly, and it will change as your business grows. So the second question here is, where do I generate leads from? Where are those lead generation pieces coming from? And this is different potentially, but also blend together, right? So what are we doing to generate leads? And where are those leads coming from? So where do you generate your leads? What's like a top, just a couple of scenarios? It may be connected to what you already said.
Yeah. Why are you looking at me?
Okay.
Like I've got something to say.
Don't you always?
Is anybody doing anything unique to generate different leads? Steph?
I think there's continuous contact with your clients.
Yeah.
And keeping in touch with them throughout the year to remind them how amazing you are.
Yep.
And then they're gonna continue to refer you.
So just really maintaining good contact with your sphere group and your client group. Good. Okay. Anyone else generating leads in other ways?
We're doing mail outs,
Okay.
specific neighborhoods,
Okay.
very targeted, and it works.
So like a not demographic, but like a community.
Yeah, like postal code specific,
Yeah.
and yeah,
Yeah.
it's
Okay.
relatively inexpensive and works well.
So there's lots of ideas. We've sat before and brainstormed on lead generation, and I've got a list I've saved from doing it as a group, and I think we had like 20 things on it. I'm sure there's lots, right? So that is one thing that we kind of get a little bit narrow-minded sometimes in our lead generation because we stick to sort of the things that are obvious, but it's a good activity, sit down and just don't put any barriers on it. Don't worry if you want to do it or not, but brain dump all the ways that you could generate leads. And there's lots of them, and we talk about that in some of the other training things that I do. So the goal, of course, is to get people from the prospect list, so in the funnel, over to the client list. And I think that this is one of the biggest challenges. Right? One is the lead generation. So I can go sit and do an open house and meet 4 people. So I've got some potential prospect there, but how do I get them to flow through that cycle and get into the client component? And if anybody's been in the business for a long time, we kind of forget where some of our sphere and our core businesses come from. And it's an interesting thing to do. When I look at my business a little bit, a lot of my best clients are people that I met at an open house when I was new starting out.
Yeah.
It's interesting. Like, I actually think some of my top clients were that. So we get sort of focused in on who we already know. And we sort of, especially as our business develops and grows over time, we forget about that initial lead generation piece. But sometimes if you track a client and then where do they come from and how are they connected, and you go back and back and back. And for me, it's, 20 years going back, and I'll be like, I met them at an open house that wasn't even my listing.
Mhm.
And that's where I met them. And I've done over 10 deals with them in 20 years or whatever it is. And that's happened a number of times. So I'm just showing that on one of the way. So I want to talk about this. So this is the prospect to client cycle. I have very little images in my presentation. So I've got like, I think 3 in this one. So I've got a little cycle there, and it is continuous, and we want to think about that. But here are the 5 things that move clients through this prospect to client piece. So reach, and we're going to go through each of these and we'll divide them down. I'm just going to admit her. Okay, so reaching the potential customer. The next piece is the acquisition of the customer. Then we're going to go into conversion to client retention, and then client loyalty. So we're going to unpackage each of these. So we'll revisit this again at the end so that you can kind of see what that process looks like if you're writing this. And I'm happy to share these slides with you guys too. But I know I didn't provide you anything, so you have to take lots of notes. And then I'll share the note after if you want. Okay, so reach, acquisition, conversion, retention, and loyalty, and we'll work through all of these. Where did I go? Okay, so reach is your marketing. This is the marketing pieces that you're putting out there. So this is your social media post. This is your flyer dropped off. This is the brochure that somebody picks up at your open house. This is your marketing pieces. This is the push that you're putting out there. Your business card falls into this category. All of those things, that is your reach, your marketing. So to stand out in the industry, you must aim to be unique and authentic and position yourself as an expert and trusted advisor. So there's a message that needs to go through everything you do that's consistent, and it needs to be thoughtfully done so that that is consistent throughout all of those pieces that you do. And if I get a flyer from Ryan and April in my mailbox, and then I go on Ryan's website, I want to see the same message. I want to see that flow through, right? So it can't, and I think we get a little bit like, just chuck shit at the wall and see what sticks. Realtors have a real good habit of having great laid plans, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to stop doing that. I'm going to try this. I'm going to say that. And it's all over the map. So we need to figure out that consistent piece and make sure that it's clear and concise all the way through. So you guys know, we talked about this last time. Here's my second image that's in my presentation today. We want to be purple cows. I want to be memorable. I want something that grabs somebody's attention, right? We know that things that are different is what we notice. We have so much information coming at us all the time. And people are on like high alert of, I don't want to be sold to, it's marketing, back off, right? So we've got to figure out a way to be creative and unique, but stand out and be memorable. So if I get a flyer in my mailbox from a realtor, and we all get them, what catches your eye versus goes straight into recycling? And it's outside of the box stuff that catches people's eyes. It's fun stuff that catches people's eyes, right? Not boring. You're gonna
Yeah, I go,
Yeah.
what else to say? I think consistency in that is also key too, right? Because there's lots of people who do it for like 3 months and then don't do it. And there's somebody else who's maybe less eye-catching, but they've been doing it for 2 years. And when it comes time to call, they call them regardless.
Yeah.
Like if you look at someone like Sonia Terabay, who basically owns Sherwood Park.
Yes.
I can't tell you how many people's houses I go to, including my own mother, where there's like
Stuff there.
a notepad on the counter, right? It's because she sent them to everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's funny, how many marketing things are in realtor or in clients' homes from realtors. And often it's not the same realtor that's got the
Right.
property listed.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Like the notepad's up, and I actually was showing a house the other day listed by some of our agents. And we were looking in the cupboard or in the closet, and there was like a Remax bag on the floor or something. And so there is some inconsistency in terms of what people hold on to and why, and then how they decide to transact. So that's an interesting piece there as well. But I think like with all of your marketing stuff, it's about elevating it up. And, I think I said this last week, and I have this written on a mirror probably in my house. We were talking about that last week. It's definitely on a sticky note in my office right now. And it's like, don't do it to get it done, do it to get a wow. Everything should be having that next level of how can I elevate this up? I can get it done and I'll get a good job and thank you for doing it or whatever. But how do we elevate it to the wow factor piece? And so if you think about all the things you're doing right now in terms of marketing, they can be elevated up to that next level. How? Get creative, right? So an excellent marketing plan or campaign should have these things. So there's some consistency here. Obviously, it does need a hook. We need something that draws people in. So it's not a bad thing. It needs to be a draw. Great visuals, eye-catching, right? Somebody notices it. Maybe catchy lines, unique content, and it has to convey a message. And all of those things need to align with the goal. So, you know, you can bring some stuff that you're already doing, and again, look at this stuff and say, if it got delivered to me, or somebody brought it in, or it was in front of me, why would I do a double take at it? What's gonna stick around? What's the piece? And realtors are terrible at marketing. Like, realtors think they're good, and they use their last names. I don't know if any of you are doing this right now, so I apologize, but they use their last names to make weird little rhymes, and it's like funny in the industry, but the consumer out there is looking at it going, what is going on? So we're kind of like dipping our toe in the water, but really in the grand scheme of things, it isn't really doing what it needs to do. And I can tell you this, we used to have when I was on the board or on one of the committees of the association, we tried to give away a marketing award to a realtor in the industry. We thought, you know what, realtors spend a lot of time and money marketing. Let's get people to apply. It's self-application. They put their process in, they put in all their tools and resources. We'll assess everything we get and we'll give away a marketing award. The best one was Sally Khan moves you on or something like that. It's like,
It's depressing.
it's depressing. It is. You know, so it's like we're limited by our own selves in that a lot. And so, you know, we got rid of the marketing award because it was clear that that was not what we were good at. Yet that's what we need to be good at, because that's what catches people's eyes and helps them draw us and that connection, right? So whatever you do, it needs to have at least one, if not more than one of these things here, right? So if you give me something from a market, whether it's on social media, at an open house, you give me something, a door knock, a drop, whatever it is, conversation, anything, it needs to fit into not all of these, but one or more of these. I will look at it if I'm interested in it. I will look at it if it points out a problem and I'm like, oh my God, that's happening to me. That's me too. I connect with it. I will look at it if it shows me an opportunity, right? I will do a double take if there's an opportunity there. How do I get into investment? You know, whatever, something that I'm like, that's interesting. If it shows expertise in an area that I have some interest in, and further, it's pointed out to me that this person is positioned well to take me through that experience because they're an expert at it, I'm interested and show value.
Somebody's trying to get in.
Oh, thank you. Jody's trying to get in. I appreciate it. So the show value piece is important, right? Because we all have tons of needs all the time. But if somebody can show me there's a value piece, so maybe it's the identified problem and show value, all of a sudden I'm potentially engaged. So it's the start of the curiosity. So if you're looking at marketing that you're doing, try to capture some of these. Obviously, you do all of them, it's going to be information overload. You've got to figure out the balance. Would you guys agree that this is a good list to say your marketing, anything you do should capture one or more of these to get engagement? Does anybody think I'm missing anything there?
Like, maybe like trust, or, you know.
That's coming.
Oh, okay.
That is coming. It's a great point. Trust is really important. It's hard to convey trust right out the get-go.
Yeah.
So part of trust for you guys, which is really key, I think, is brand. The brand recognition. So that is kind of not the trust you want to get the client, but the trust to get somebody to look is something like having Century 21. And I'm not trying to, like, this is just because you said it and I'm thinking about it, but a brand that people go, I know what that is. It's a reputable company. Tell me more about the offer. So lots of companies have been able to do that successfully. Obviously, Apple, Starbucks, we think of the big ones, but a brand that's sitting in the bottom corner of a marketing piece brings comfort and trust into that piece without somebody being like, what is this?
Well, there's so many different brokers now, like people, like I just dealt with one the other day, Ally Broker or Ally Realty, never heard of them.
Yes,
There's so many, and
Yes.
it confuses people.
yes.
Yeah,
And you can see the client, you can
Even I'm
imagine,
confused.
yes, we're confused and we have hesitancy to
yeah.
it, so I agree with that, yeah. Shayna, did you have a comment?
no.
You were just stretching? Sore arm. Okay, okay. Okay. Oh, sorry, that's, okay, so the next, let me just make sure I didn't miss anything here. Okay, so step 2 of that client cycle was acquisition. This also is engagement. They're the same kind of thing. So acquisition, let's chat about this. If I can, there we go. So this is a response to your marketing. Now, hopefully it's a response that you can see. And it might be as awesome as a phone call or somebody reaching out, but the response might not be something that you get to see. It might be just resonating from within. So again, if you think about anything that falls into the bucket of being done over a longer period of time, again, I'm just gonna pick on the flyer drop thing. Ryan and April might knock it out of the park. They've got an area they're targeting, they've got the marketing piece is great, and they're sending it out, but nobody's phoning. But if they've created a good enough piece, they're actually still into acquisition because hopefully somebody's getting it and going, we got this last month and it was interesting. Oh, here it is again. So there is sometimes, and that's hard because you can't track it, but on the downside, on the soft side, there is this piece happening and you don't even know it's happening. I know we've had realtors do open houses and say nobody came, what a waste of time. And I had another realtor say, I don't even care if anybody comes because I do such a great job telling everybody about the open house before I do it, putting my signs out, doing marketing online, doing a video about the upcoming open house, that I don't even care if anybody comes to the open house, because the point of it was me advertising and marketing the open house and selling myself. People come through or not, don't care, because I actually know I got some acquisition. I know I got some imprinting of my name and my brand on people in the area, so that counts for something. It's not as trackable, which makes it sometimes defeating and depleting, but it's happening as long as we're consistent. Okay, so response to marketing, obviously the best response to marketing is when somebody does engage with you. And so there's a few pieces in here with this component is the push versus pull and passive versus active. So if I'm constantly putting out passive things, again, if you think about the passive stuff, it's me sitting around waiting for somebody to call me, right? So it can't only be passive activities. I need also those active things, which is me saying, hey, Wendy, it's Geneva. I sent you something last month, or hey, I haven't heard from you in a while, or hey, there's an interest rate thing going on, and I know your mortgage is coming up for renewal, or I just got this really cool listing that I thought you might even just want to check out. Whatever it is, it's an actual active call to action and a conversation versus passively just posting stuff on social media. Your business, the passive stuff you can do tons of, you need to do way more of if we think about door knocking versus flyer dropping. Flyer dropping is going to be very passive. We're doing it repeatedly, monthly, we're hitting a number of homes, we're just waiting for somebody to finally resonate and grab that flyer and call us. Active is door knocking it. And who's door knocked before? So half-ish okay. So door knocking is like, if it sounds super scary, nobody wants to do it. I used to do it. I actually was always like, it's like getting a needle. It's in your head gonna be way worse than it actually is. 100%. And I know this because I drag my kid to get blood work done every month, and he has full-on panic attacks every month, and he always walks out of there going, it actually wasn't that bad. And I'm like, oh my God. It was like an 8-hour crazy thing that occurred. And that 30-second little bit of blood work, and you're like, I'm like, remember that, take a video of that. Remember that, so you can hold on to it for next time. But the action of door knocking, we're stressed out about it, but when we actually get to talk to people, like that's what we should be good at. And if I only have to talk to 40 or 50 people and get 1 or 2 people to engage versus drop 400 flyers every month for 12 months to get 1 person to engage, you can see there which one might be a better use of our time, even though it's hard. But we're actually good with people. That's why we're in this business, right?
It's actually like, I find the door knocking before you do it.
The before you do it,
So
the
you're
stress.
okay with somebody getting mad at you at the door, and when they do, it's actually not that bad. They
Yeah.
don't wanna talk to you,
They don't want to talk to you, so you're worried.
and then you move on.
So just to reiterate that, I can't, David, I can see you and Brent right now. Can you guys hear when somebody in the back table comments or no? You can hear that? Okay, good. Okay, then I won't reiterate everything. I said this is talking about door knocking specifically, but you could do this with anything that you have that feeling about. So when it goes back to your mindset piece, it is, I'm going to do this. If somebody doesn't want me there, that's okay. I don't need to be here and I will move on. Thick skin, not worry about it. But the other thing that I had the agent do, and we have a couple agents that really successfully door knock, but they get that same thing too. So I said, the next time you go door knocking and you finish and you've got 2 leads or 3 leads from it, people that want some kind of follow-up, sit in your car and record a ridiculous video that you don't send to somebody. That's of yourself high-fiving your own self. I killed it today. I hit 40 doors. I got 3 leads. This is how I feel right now. Don't forget this. Watch this video before you go out again. You got this. You're going to close some people, high five and go. Now I got a video reminding myself, I'm going to tell my son to do that. Next time he's got to get a shot. Remember, it wasn't that bad. Watch the video of yourself. You'll feel connected to it. And then next time you're going to go out again, you can watch that video, get pumped up and go out and do it probably a little bit easier, right? Because it'll re-invoke those emotions of that's what I felt when I was done. So yeah, go ahead.
Well, and if you're door knocking, because I've done it for specific reasons. If you're bringing something to the table, like giving them something of value, you don't feel like you're harassing them as much.
Yeah.
So like when I was with Maxwell, they had diabetes, donation garbage bags.
Yeah.
So it was like here, and then you can get a conversation going, but you're giving them something of value. That
Yes.
they might use, but if you're just randomly door knocking,
Yes.
well, that's a little bit different.
I mean, we definitely talked about that before. I always think you should go with something. I'm inviting you to an open house. I'm letting you know we listed a property down the street. My son came home last night and he's like, Mom, there's a plastic bag on our door. And it was a Walmart plastic bag with a piece of paper inside it that said collections for the food bank, put it out on Saturday. You know, I mean, you could do something like that. Right? I'm going around the area, I'm a realtor, but actually I decided I'm door knocking this community. I also want to do collection for the food bank. So I'm gonna come back on Saturday. Here's a bag. You don't even have to talk to me right now. That being said, the listing down the street just went up, but whatever. Like you can create these links of things which you know, create engagement from people. That's all we're looking for is engagement. And in that case, it gives you something to talk about. So something that people appreciate. You need to have a call to action. This is like it can be more subtle than it used to be, but this is something that needs to be a part of your marketing. It does still work. It needs to be there. I think if we get out of the salesy side of the initial piece, the call to action piece is the component that definitely still needs to remain. So why would I phone you? What's the point of reaching out? All of those things. And then have to make them need me. They need more information. They need to dig a little deeper, whatever it is. So you want to bring all of those things in. So we've got the reach, the marketing going out, we've got some engagement and people, you know, interested in what we're doing, talking to me at an open house, all of those kinds of things, that acquisition piece is there. So we move into conversion, which of course is the most exciting because this is where they switch from being a customer to getting some kind of a commitment to move forward with us. Okay. Okay. So I already said this one, I'm gonna say it again. All conversion happens in conversation. All conversion happens in conversation. This is what we're good at. This is when somebody calls you and you have the opportunity to close them or bring them in and get them to commit. It's because of the conversation. It's what you deliver. It's how you make them feel. It's a conversation. So I think I say this later on, but I'm going to say it a bunch of times. We need to be having more conversations. We live in a world that is so techy and easy to reach and feel good about a post that's got 200 or 500 or 1,000 likes or whatever, but those are not conversations. So we need to figure out how to have more conversations to get the conversion, and that is where those people will jump. Okay. So I already said, it doesn't matter how much marketing you push out. It doesn't matter. You've got to talk to people. And we're good at talking. So what does a client need to make that decision to work with you? So what does that little flip look like? Where they're like, oh, that's interesting. I met Sheldon at that open house and he's got me some information and that's great. Don't really care about him, just looking for the info. What makes me go, that's the guy that I want to work with? what's that clip? So Steph said this earlier, the obvious ones, we know this, that people, if they feel that connection, that know, like, and trust, they will feel comfortable moving forward. And part of that, I dug a little deeper there, those sublying ones, knowledge, confidence, professionalism. So if I'm chatting with Sheldon at the open house, and the more he talks, I start to feel like I am getting to know him. So there's a little bit of a connection there. And I like how he presents, professional, whatever, it's a similar personality style or whatever that is, that trust piece. But also it is so important that it seems like he knows what he's talking about, has the knowledge, that he's confident, which means competent, right? And professional. And I know I put professional on your list last week on your scorecard, and I heard a little bit of chatter after about what that really meant. I think it's different for everybody. You know, I think that you've got it's one is image, one is the way you communicate, you know, one is how you represent the industry and what you're doing. So you know, that encompasses a lot of different things there. So these are the goals, obviously. And then, so how do we get them to convert? So the conversion piece happens when, through that conversation or from the marketing piece that was delivered, the value proposition, the value piece that's being put forward to me matches the needs. That's the easy one, right? So if I'm engaging a conversation, what's being shared with me matches my needs. The next piece, which is really exciting and people get quicker to engage, is that they exceed expectations. So this is when it's like, okay, I need to buy X, Y, Z, fine, there's somebody there, I've got it, here's how we do it, whatever, you know, this is how it'll go. But if they say, and this, and that, we also do these extra things, that's that wasn't even on my radar, but that's amazing. I remember, Ryan, you were telling me a few years ago about, you called into GoDaddy to fix a domain.
Mm-hmm.
And like, they met your needs, but they exceeded your needs.
Yeah.
And you talked about it after, because you were like, why did this guy just help me with all this stuff?
Yeah.
He could have just fixed the problem I called in for, but he did more.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I can help you with that. I can help you with this. Sure, let's do that. And it was really good.
Yeah. And you talked about it. I remember you talking about it. And so that's the goal, is kind of somebody going, oh, that's actually cool. And I didn't even know that I needed that. That wasn't even on my radar as something that had value, but now it does because you've talked about it. The relatable piece is so important. This is your communication style and your skills and your ability to morph and work from, you know, an emotive kind of personality to a directed personality. It's the ability to move from the touchy-feely client into the one that's got charts and graphs and be able to connect with both of them and meet those needs. Your worst clients that you'll ever have are the couple that, like, you know, the one is so super emotional and decision-making, and the other one is very analytical. Like, just sell them 2 houses. Right? I've said that to people. I'm like, we can't find one house. This is never going to work. I'm selling you 2. You guys can figure out who's going to which one. Being authentic and transparent, like the real person, right? Not the canned speech. We were chatting this morning about this realtor I've been dealing with, which he's like so chachi. It's just a sales pitch every time he calls me just to talk about a real estate negotiation. And I'm like, stop it. You make me not want to answer my phone. I don't want to talk to you anymore. You're not being authentic. That is not who you are. Show up your real self. Like, you don't have to be this thing. And I find, like, this is a fun thing to play with, because I enjoy this part a lot. Like, this is kind of links yourself back to that professional image, but then you let people see that other side of you, that fun side, that's where the connection happens, right? So my favorite is to deal with somebody that's like got all the knowledge, the professionalism, they got all their stuff together, but then you see these little, like, not emotional, like in a bad way, but these little pieces that build out their character, and you're like, that's somebody I could see having lunch with, or have a glass of wine with, or we're gonna laugh about something together. So being authentic and transparent, and again, people are hypersensitive to being sold to. The transparency piece and being authentic are huge, because people can tell. And attitude and energy, obviously, right? Nobody wants to work with a dud who's like complaining about everything, comes in a bad mood. So what's that energy you bring? That's the video recording before you go do the marketing thing that you don't want to do, but you know is going to get you leads. find that energy, bring that's that mindset shift, you know, how's my day gonna go, even though I'm feeling super overwhelmed, am I gonna bring my best self, all of those things. So if we can show up and do some or all of these, I think the conversion is much more likely, right? Your value proposition, I dive deeper into this in our new agent training, which this is like my favorite topic, and we'll do a little bit of work on this at the end if we have time. But your value proposition, generally, now I'm not suggesting this all goes on your marketing pieces. This is a behind the scenes, figure out what your value proposition is for different needs and different scenarios. But we're gonna talk, it should cover these things, and we're gonna work down this list quickly so you understand what I'm talking about. So I'm gonna relate this to a listing presentation, but 100% I believe that you can link this into you know, a buyer situation or any kind of different scenarios you're working. So if I'm talking to Steph and she's sharing with me why I should hire as a realtor, and she says, as an example, well, it's gonna go on the MLS, I'm gonna put up a yard sign, and I'll schedule appointments, you know, we'll book scheduled appointments. And I am gonna go, obviously, right? Like, isn't that just the fundamental part of why I would hire a realtor? So if you're not doing the basics, get out of the business. Like, you actually can't probably function in the business without the basics. So that's not a value proposition. That's boring, of course. Like that is obvious. Differentiated is that next level. So how do I add into my business a standard that I do across the board? So on every listing, I always take professional photos. On every listing, I hire out RMS measurements. On every listing, I always do a video tour. On every listing, I do this. On every listing, I do that. This is, now, some of them will fall into, lots of realtors are doing them too. But has anybody looked at on MLS lately and seen somebody that's posted a listing with pictures on their iPhone? They have. So not everybody's doing it, but most people are doing it. So differentiated is good, still not great, but it's still good. And I think it's important that your clients know this is something that I do for all of my clients. And I'm sure you've looked, you know, as an example on MLS and seen other realtors doing this too. And you've probably seen some that haven't. And you can tell that this is a great reason to, you know, have XYZ done because it's whatever, right? So that's how that falls. So customize. So customize services in your value proposition, become more specific to that property and that situation. Hello, Blaine. Come in and drop off your deposit check. It's good. So customized services are about that specific property or that specific situation. So that's where if I'm sitting with the client and I'm talking with them about their needs, we're going to talk about things that will help that circumstance. So for example, if I was listing a property on White App, I might be talking about the walkability, creating a little scenario about, you know, the cafes or the pubs or whatever that are nearby, the breweries, the experience piece. So this is customized to that property. So when you're in it, it might be the drone shot because the property's close to a lake or, you know, whatever that looks like, doing some kind of video tour. So the customized piece is specific. And what's nice about it is it happens while you're sitting with the client and you're building that piece out. So it may not get delivered immediately, or you could bring in things like, once I meet with you, we could figure out some customization to my marketing plan that'll help elevate your property to the next level. So like a teaser piece is going in there. And then the convenience piece is, this is like the cream on top of the whatever, I don't put cream on anything. So the cream on top of the donut, there we go. So this is the next level, and really it makes life easier. So this is where it comes back inward to the person and they go, oh my God, that makes life easier. That is, I've got a cleaner, I'm gonna hire you tidy, I'm sending my cleaner through. This is, we're going out and looking at showings. I'm giving your kids little care backpacks that have stickers and Play-Doh in it, and they're gonna sit in the corner and do something while you're looking at the property. This is, hey tenants, I know the showings are inconvenient. I'm giving you a $100 gift card for McDonald's, and I hope whenever we book a showing, you go to McDonald's and take your kids for French fries. This is specific, it hits inside, it's next level, it doesn't have to cost a lot of money, but it's convenient, and people really value convenience. And this is a great opportunity. There's tons of stuff that can happen here. Again, this is when you're in the moment with the client engaging, because you need to know what that looks. If I have a clean house and somebody offers me a cleaner, I'm gonna like, great, don't care. So there's some pieces in there, but again, I just talked about it from a listing standpoint. You need to kind of do this in all aspects and all services that you offer. What's the basic boring, differentiated, great, what's my standard of practice? And we all are kind of floating in that area because we are full service and we want to give our client good customer service, but the extra pieces are important and we need to talk about that. Oh, my screen is blocked here. It says commitment. There you go. So commitment is the goal, getting the client to be like, I'm in, let's go. I like that. I want to work with you, and we get that commitment. So that's that completion of that step 3. Okay, so next is retention. Okay, so we all know really what that means at a first glance. Retention comes from what you did and a little bit about what you do. So if I get the client to buy in with me and then I don't deliver, retention falls. If the client buys in and it's mediocre, retention's there, but it's soft, right? So it's about what I did. How did I deliver on what I said? And a little bit, like I said, about what you do. Oh. Okay. So building retention, a big part of this is what's already happened. So like I said, this is, you know, the delivery on what you said you were going to. So how did that transaction go and flow? Was there problems? If there were they solvable? How did I handle them? Was I creative in solutions? Was it smooth? How much stress did the client feel? Well, they felt stressed. Were they feeling supported? Maybe it was stress-free. That's a huge win. Did we solve problems as they came up and mitigate risk? I think we can create such huge retention by thinking outside the box and problem solving. And we've come up with some cool solutions over the years in some of our collaborative groups and mastermind groups and things where somebody's like, I don't know, I've got this going on. And together somebody's like, well, what if you tried that? What if you did this? You know, I mean, there's lots of different things. Really good example of that, just to do a quick spin-off, was a few years ago in our mastermind group, one of the agents, I think it was maybe you, Sheldon, but I put on the spot, I think it was, but he had a client that had kind of, he had a listing and a buyer come and then left, and they were trying to get the buyer back, and there was some interest there. And we said, why does the seller write the offer and send it to the buyer? Why does the seller always have to sit there and wait for getting offers? The seller can put an offer together and send it to the buyer.
That worked too, didn't it?
Yeah,
And it worked.
a few times.
How,
That's
well,
nice.
what's the
Nice.
client experience in that? Retention? You betcha. Thinking outside the box? 100%. We get these like caps on the way that we think, and we forget sometimes to be creative, you know, and the wins, like these are these huge value add, going above and beyond. You know, I chatted about them a little bit last week, like a client that was like, I need to find something with a quick possession, but we couldn't get closed in time. I'm like, let's see if they'll rent it to you for 3 weeks. We can get you in there next week and you can still close in 3 weeks. And it worked. And he was like, I didn't even know that was an option. I thought I was going to live with my daughter for 2 weeks. So we can be creative. We need to think outside the box. And sometimes you need other people to collaborate on that and help you get there. Did you deliver or exceed the value proposition? Biggest check mark or X, right? I said I was going to do all these things. This is my value proposition. Did I deliver those things? So if not, retention for sure drops. Building more trust. As you build trust, you get to move into the trusted advisor role. I don't think you get to be a trusted advisor until you've actually demonstrated and worked through that. So the first piece is trust. Like, I trust Lorraine to handle this. But as we go through the process and I keep seeing her build that layer and layer and layer, she slowly will work her way into a trusted advisor for me that I will think about after. So it's an earned thing based on how you act. And then the overall client satisfaction, obviously. So this is an interesting one when we think about, like, what does key release look like? Possession day, how stressed is that moment? I talked last week about cleaning a property for a client, because I was like, you can kick ass, you guys have experienced this, you can kick ass the entire transaction. And possession day is a disaster. Almost all of your hard work is gone.
Mhm.
That is why we do not send client satisfaction surveys out after possession. Because they forget, they have short memories sometimes. They forget about all the great things that you've done, and going into a dirty house, not getting keys till 4, maybe not getting them the next day. That is the last part of it, and it can let all the good work out the door. So if those things happen, that's where we're working so hard, and you have to work so hard to solve it at the end, and sometimes you can't. So you do lose a little bit of control sometimes depending on the transaction goes, but overall client satisfaction is so huge. As they walk away, how do they feel about the entire experience? And is it something that they're talking about? And if there's negatives in there, hopefully they can talk about the solution or the piece that you did to solve and resolve. So if you failed in this list, no retention, obviously, people are gone. But if you succeed, you get to move them into that next part of the cycle and keep them there, right? So that is the goal. I don't know why this is still late. There we go. So retention is a measure of whether an existing client will continue to do business with you. So as you finish that transaction, there's retention there if they're going to think of you and work with you again. Retention is the reward for a job well done, a good job done. But I think it's so important to remember that it can fade. So we all have clients, if you've been doing this for a while, who we kicked ass. There was retention, there was engagement, and then you go to do your Christmas mail out, we were talking about this the other day, and something comes back and says moved. So retention is interesting, right? Because that client was in your sphere, they were referring you business, they were engaging like they would use you again, and then something happened, right? And sometimes it just is what it is. You're going to lose a little bit. That's why we're always feeding the top, obviously, of the funnel, but retention can fade. So we've moved us into loyalty. So this is the fifth and final piece of this cycle, is the loyalty piece. And I spent a lot of time yesterday thinking about the difference between retention and loyalty, because I've kept kind of almost muddying them in my mind. And I really feel like those are the different pieces there. But loyalty is that kind of next level when we think about a predisposition to a selected business entity, or in this case, a realtor, indicated a certain resistance to competitors. So that is where your client is maybe getting marketing pieces, getting campaigned from somebody else, but they're reject, nope, I've got my person. So they're rejecting and resisting competitors. That is the ultimate goal, right? Because you know you can still nurture them, but they're also protecting that space and that relationship. So it's important. So I really love that that thoughtfulness about the resistance to competitors. So loyalty, so this is how I've decided to look at it, is that retention is kind of like backwards. What I did gets me that retention, but loyalty is about the relationship moving forward. Okay. Okay, so building that loyalty, again, about looking forward, what will happen. So this is what we were talking about when we started, right? The follow-up and keeping in touch. But how? Not just a mail out, the connection piece. Because if we get them to know, like, and trust us, and we have a relationship we've developed, how do we continue that relationship and make them feel like they're still a part of that inner core and group of ours, right? So follow up and keeping in touch, and we can unpackage that a little bit in a minute. Figuring out how to continue to deliver value. So if we go back to the list of, like, how do I get somebody to engage? I mean, I can think about saying, you know, this might be something that's of interest. This might solve a problem. This might, you know, do this or that, and bringing extra pieces in that gets them thinking about it. So you can cycle back to your marketing piece and the deliverables there, and then bring them back into this group and figure out what would be relevant. How do I remain that trusted advisor? I think a lot of it is about making sure the client is informed of things that in real estate that make sense. So is it interest rate changes? Is it mortgage renewal time? Is it, you know, sometimes you guys do things like it's fall cleanup or spring this or whatever. So I've got 3 great people that can come and do a fall furnace service for $200. let me know if you're interested. I can remain the trusted advisor by putting things that are relevant and useful back in front of the client. I'm sure, again, if you've been in business for a while, have people that I'll send, they'll get my pop buys, they'll get my little donut gift card, they'll get my Christmas thing, they'll get the little things that I do. But maybe I don't actually connect with them all that often, but out of the blue, they'll be like, I need a plumber, do you have a name? 3 years after we transacted. You know, so if you can get into that place where you remind them, anything you need, reach out. I've got a great group of professionals I work with. Anytime something comes up with your home, feel free to reach out. Like, you can fall regularly in as this trusted advisor if you position yourself that you're open to that. The check-ins and professional resource. So that's what I was just talking about. And then making sure that the client continuously feels valued and appreciated long after the transaction. And on the flip side of this, it just has to be easy, which is the trick. It has to be natural, not salesy. So, you know, ridiculous things. Like, I've got some clients that are fantastic and 2 little boys. I call her all the time. I'm like, my kids grew out of this. I have these toys. I have books. I drop stuff off all the time. I gave them the water park passes because I couldn't go, and they got to go. So you know, there are clients that have, like, 5 years ago bought their house, but I figured out a way to, and it's easy because it's not me selling them anything. It's just me saying, hey, I thought you guys might like this or whatever. So you can do that with lots of different people in lots of different ways, but that continuously supports and builds out that loyalty moving forward. Let me just look and see what my next slide is here. Okay. Comments about retention and loyalty. Does that how I've divided them out make sense? And can you see how a client could be in the retention bucket, but then it can fall and go, versus the loyalty piece is like, they're kind of there. Everybody's got a lifespan, but they're there. And if you continue to do the things, they'll stay there. And do you think the assessment of why some of our clients that we had great relationships with didn't end up transacting with us kind of fit into those 2 buckets as well? And we can make sense maybe where the gap was.
I think that sometimes, actually oftentimes, to your point about closing day, when, you know, keys don't get released till 4, the house is dirty, and it's like, I think it's easy to convince yourself as a realtor, like, none of that's my fault, I didn't do anything wrong, but it still doesn't matter, you get the blame for it anyways. So I think it's important to, like, take care of those things in the long run, even though it's not your, you know, issue, and your ego gets in the way, which totally has happened for me many times.
Yeah.
For future retention.
Yeah.
Right? Turning that around, because at some point they probably come to their senses and go, well, it wasn't him. He didn't clean the house.
Yeah,
Right?
that's right. And there are fixes there. Now, like, you know, when a problem happens at closing, James and I jump very quickly into the risk mitigation bucket, as you guys know. And it's about, like, don't own it. And if you do something, it could create some liability and show responsibility. So there's a very fine line there in terms of solving problems, but not being responsible for the problem. And so we always want some thoughtfulness around that to make sure that it doesn't get us into any hot water. But I absolutely think that there's ways to do it to make the client feel like, and they are quick to acknowledge that, like, this isn't your problem to fix. And yet if you still go ahead and provide some kind of support or solution, or even if it's a gift card to help a little bit to mitigate something that someone else did, they do usually remember that, right? But you do need to talk about it and make sure that they're aware. Because if I just have a little tantrum and then Ryan gives me a gift card, I might not appreciate it as much as Ryan explaining, well, this is how the seller did it. The realtor probably should have done a walkthrough, whatever. There was definitely not enough coaching and counseling. The responsibility was XYZ. I've tried to call them. They've not called me back. I really don't like that you're feeling this way right now. What I would like to offer on their behalf, because they're not stepping up and doing it, is this. So you can say it in a nice way so that they understand, but if we just do it, sometimes the whole point of it gets lost, right? And so I think that you can do some of those solution pieces, but we do want people to know, like, I don't have to do this. Obviously I'm not going to say it that way. I don't have to do this, but it matters to me that I do, and here's why, right? And there is those opportunities in there. And I also think that problems, you know, going back a little bit to the retention piece, like, problems are our opportunity to shine. When problems hit your desk on a real estate transaction or anywhere with your clients, you should stop feeling about them as negatives and looking at them as opportunities. Looking at them as going, this is why they hired a realtor. this is my opportunity to shine and provide solution and coach them through that scenario and give them a hand and make sure that they feel supported as they work through it. And so like, I've started looking at problems like that as opportunities and why I have a job as a realtor. If all of our transactions were easy breezy, then we don't have jobs. Because if it was just about two clients coming together and picking a price and boom, done, like we actually aren't needed. Other than filling in the contract a little bit, which is not really a realtor's strong suit, as you guys have experienced. So we can't even really say that we're good at that all the time. Our office is good, but you know, maybe not so much out there. And so I think like it is saying when a problem comes up, this is my opportunity. This is my retention, even loyalty bucket that these things start to hit into. So how do I handle it? How am I conveying myself? Do they feel comfortable and confident that I'm going to guide them through it? There is the glue. That's what makes it stick, right? Okay. Okay, so I don't remember why this slide is here. I think that this is to cycle back. It is about who your key and core people are, your sphere group, your repeat referral business. And I think the point of this slide, I finished this last night at 11:30. The point of this slide is that if we get them through retention and into loyalty, this is the bucket they fall into. There it is. I brought it back. And so that's the goal, right? This is the nice business. Because when these people phone us, we're already right back into commitments, right? We're already right back into engagement. We're right back there. We don't have to worry about all the other pieces. So it makes it so nice. So here's our cycle again. So just to reiterate that, so we've got our reach. This is all of the marketing going out. Acquisition is that engagement piece. Conversion is that commitment to us. Retention is what we did and how we actually showed up through that transaction. And loyalty is what we do moving forward. And this is imperative that you guys figure out where people are in your pipeline, how are you communicating, what are you delivering, what is going on, and you need a flow of this constantly, right? Where do you feel like you get stuck? Reach, okay? The big part, the lead gen stuff. Why are you getting stuck there, do you feel like?
It feels a little overwhelming sometimes, I want to say.
Okay. Overwhelming in that you feel like you need to bring in more leads than you are.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
Say conversion.
conversion. Okay, tell me more about that.
Just with the, like, say, the reach that's out there of just, say you're going on a sign call or you're responding to a random lead, so that becomes more than just a evening out.
Yeah,
So I'd rather turn into a client.
yeah,
So taking it that next step, because otherwise there's quite a bit of volunteer work throughout the week.
yeah.
Lots of that.
I think it changes too, the longer you're in the business, the less like you want to do that stuff,
Right.
you know, and
Or the more it
I
has to pay off.
yeah, but I can think about like in the beginning, like doing that stuff and then buying $1 million house and you're like, oh, good thing I took that call. And then now being like, I don't want to take that call, you know, just for no reason,
Mhm.
just being in it for longer and being discouraged by the ones that were a waste of time.
Yeah, and I think, well, I'm gonna comment on both of those, because if we keep going, I'm gonna forget. So, to your point, you're getting stuck at reach. I think part of that is about figuring out the target client and making sure your reach is correct. If I am trying to convert, if I'm trying to reach somebody that's not my target, it is overwhelming and it doesn't connect properly. And so you're putting all your stuff out there, but it's really not hitting home. So that means that there needs to be a tweak and change to the reach piece, the marketing piece, so that it's hitting the right people, therefore getting the right engagement. And I think it is getting outside the box and having fun with it a little bit too, and back in front of people and the conversation component and all of those. From the conversion piece, it's kind of the same thing a little bit too, right? Is that if the conversion isn't happening, then it's sort of reached the wrong person.
Mhm.
And there's for sure a challenge in the sign call piece, and that and so that's where maybe I think there's a little more work done in that acquisition to figure out if it's, yes, they've reached out, but now because of the conversation, I am figuring out whether this is somebody that I think I can convert or not. And here's my reasons why. This is my non-negotiables, lose them now or lose them later kind of mentality, figuring out your time and making sure it's pointed. So I would suggest if by the time you get to the showing, the conversion piece is a gap, then it's go back to the acquisition of them and figure out what's the miss and what are my list of criteria and where's the non-starters and what am I not driving around the city at 8 p.m. at night for a sign call to not show. What am I not doing? And I think questions, the conversation, if you're putting value proposition out there and having a good conversation and they're really not engaging, like that's kind of your number one, is there's a miss in what they're looking for and what you're trying to do. And that's okay. Not everything aligns. There's not every store is for everybody. There's, I can shop at lots of places and we all know where our target pieces are. Not everybody's going to want to go to the dollar store. Not everybody wants to go to Holt Renfrew. Not everybody's going to go with a discount brokerage model. Not everybody's going to go with a full service. For sale by owners are not my client. Sign calls have become more popular. We do need to figure out a way to get that acquisition and conversion piece going, but they have to have a willingness to go down that path and understand what hiring a realtor, working with a professional, that value add piece means. Otherwise, they're not a good client for you. And the problem is if you convert the wrong client, they kick and scream the entire process and there's zero retention at the end anyways, because no matter what you did, they didn't care. You discounted your commission. You went above and beyond, but none of it, they don't care because it wasn't a value piece to them. So, that's an interesting piece when you kind of back that all up. And I just think it's, if there's conversion not happening there, I just think it's the wrong lead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I have a question on that sign call thing.
Yeah.
If you have a listing and you get a sign call, is it not your fiduciary duty to your client, because you need to do everything to sell this house, to show that house if somebody calls and wants to see it?
I think your fiduciary duty to your client is to show qualified buyers to that property.
Okay.
And if through your course of questions, you determine that they may not be a qualified buyer, I think you owe it to your seller to take only qualified buyers through the property. And I think that's where it allows you to be a little bit thoughtful on who that applies to. Especially if, there's lots of different reasons, but if they're a qualified buyer, it should come out in the conversation.
Yeah.
And
of
you
course.
can make that assessment as you go through that and get their answers and decide. This happened the other day to one of our agents. A buyer phone wanted to see it. In a questioning, she asked if they had a realtor. Oh yeah, but he just had surgery and this and that. And she's like, well, one, why is he not phoning? And two, when's he available? And like, why is the client phoning? You have the realtor phone me, and if he needs me to show it. So we had a big conversation about the fact that it was probably not a client of hers, but there did appear to be some interest there. And then is the fiduciary duty of the seller to actually take them through the property? Probably, but also you could figure we don't work for free either. So it's okay to bring all of those things in.
I definitely had a situation where a realtor was on vacation, their client called and wanted to see it, and they did buy it, so it worked out. But I also get the other end of it too, because I've done that as well.
I don't think our job is to jump when somebody says jump without it being like going through a process and making sure that it makes sense. And that's where I think you fall to the other side of the line. It's a great question. And obviously the goal is to sell the property. And if I think it's a viable client, that's probably why, in Sheldon's case, he's probably going out a little more frequently than he might, because it might be in the seller's best interest, but I definitely think you get to scrutinize it up. That front. Yeah. Anyone getting stuck anywhere else? Obviously, those are the hardest ones, right? The lead gen and stuff. I think we attract at the brokerage, obviously, a lot of people that are good at right business, retention, the loyalty piece, relationships with our clients. So I think as we move down the list, it gets easier and easier to do, because We all just really care about our clients, want to provide a good experience and retain a relationship with them and have that loyalty piece. Okay, there's a delay. Let's just let it do its thing. Skip one I did. Okay, so the funnel is for sure a funnel that goes down narrow. So we need to be doing as many prospecting things to get the small amount of leads that we need to generate the business that we want regularly. In some of the training that I do, you guys know, we'll do like a breakdown of here's my prospecting list. Okay, great. When do you like to do open houses? How many leads do you get out of an open house? Well, maybe 10 people come through, you get one person that leaves their name. How many of those people that leave their names actually turn in? So do you need 5 of those to get one client lead? Okay, so how many open houses are you doing? So you need to take these activities and apply some level of expectancy on conversion, and then understand how many activities I need to do. Same with the flyer dropping. Brian and April, it's hard in the beginning. You have to do activities for a while to figure out what your conversion is on it, test different things, mix things up, figure out what fits. But if they're dropping 200 flyers once a month to a community, okay, great. How long do you need to do that? How many leads is it generating? What's the goal? Therefore, what is the quantity, time frame, etc., that needs to happen? If they do it for 6 months and get no leads and quit, you know, they've cut themselves off before they finish. So you need to know what the big picture is. You do need to be assessing it all the time, and understand how many activities are required to get a lead and how many leads do you need to get a conversion, and then build it back up and out. And that will build out that marketing plan, that strategy plan, the activity plan, because you're going to work it backwards. And especially as a new agent, but also with a changing market, you need to be reassessing that on a regular basis. Because when I start, I might be terrible at door knocking or terrible at open houses, but every time I go, I work something new and try a different dialogue or change up my flyer, find something that works. So I'm going to reassess, and hopefully the goal would be that you would get better results as you become more refined and more experienced in what it is you're doing, right? First open houses for a year might be terrible, but it's good client engagement. Now I'm going to try saying this, try doing that. This works. And now all of a sudden my numbers start to shift and change. So you want to be adding people constantly, if you can, to your database or sphere every single day. And don't forget about the conversations. Did I put that in here? No. So not only am I trying to get those leads, but I need to think about having conversations with people regularly, because that's where conversion comes from. The conversations are so important. You want to make sure, so we kind of talked about this a little bit with your question, Sheldon, that your target client and your value proposition are aligned. I'm never going to win against a discount brokerage. I'm not cutting my commission. I'm not cutting my service. It's not my client. It's okay. Right? So let those people go. And sign calls sometimes are challenging right now because they're wanting to deal with the listing agent, because they think they're going to get a better deal. You know, get all the way into negotiations, and then guess whose commission is on the table to make the gap meet. This is now shows up really quickly that we're dealing with a client that doesn't have the same value interest in the value proposition that you're putting forward, and it comes back to bite you as you continue down the road. Something that we need to be trained and experienced in terms to deal with, but you see how it pops up sometimes when you get somebody under contract and then all of a sudden you can tell it's a bad fit, right? So making sure that what we're doing for marketing and my target client on the receiving end of that is connected to what service I'm offering, the deliverable that I'm talking about. The goal is why versus why wouldn't I, right? So if I get something coming at me, it's like, well, why would I do that? But the goal here is I want somebody to say, why wouldn't I work with Lorraine? Why wouldn't I work with Shayna? Why wouldn't I work with Melissa, right? So that really is the goal, is to knock all of those things out of the park enough where somebody's like, obviously, this is the right way to go. And then consciously moving them through that cycle, knowing where they are, thinking about those different steps, thinking about how you can add and enhance them as they go through. I'm not sure that I've never really spent a lot of time in this area before. We talk about bringing the leads and we talk about kind of getting them closed and completed, but really knowing where your people are in that cycle and moving them through that is so important. And you need obviously more prospects coming in because we know not everybody converts, and that's okay. So let that happen. You know, you're not converting all of them, so don't let those be depleting either. You definitely want to just understand that there's going to be people following. There's a reason that we're trying to get way more leads than we actually need to have come out the bottom end of the pipeline. And that's the funnel. Computer is very slow. Okay, and then the last kind of reminder here is what happens before, during, and after are the direct reflection on the loyalty piece. And then, like I said before, this is your repeat and referral business. So I'm gonna pause there and we're gonna talk about this for a second. Any additional thoughts, comments on that cycle and flow? Does that give you guys some stuff to think about? Do you feel like you can use some of those resources and tools and information to now build out a little bit more of your strategy and your marketing and your prospecting pieces? Okay. And online, my folks online, does anybody have any questions or comments?
I have one thing to add, Geneva.
Go ahead.
All right. I think we can have clients that trust us, but they don't refer us. They will
Okay.
come back and be loyal to us. So I think one of the extra pieces there would be finding somebody who's an advocate.
I agree. Expand on that.
So again, you can have somebody who, you know, is loyal to you. They've bought, sold, they've come back and done their business, but they've never referred or given extra business. So
Yeah.
you can have that know, like, trust, but it's that extra step to get them to become that advocate. So they are also the people who are then telling their friends, their family, their colleagues what you do and how you do it so that they become a business generator.
Yeah, I like that. So it's definitely like that extra piece onto the loyalty side of the cycle where you can identify some of those people and have them help bringing people in. And when they bring people in, they come in to a totally different part of the cycle, right? That lead
Yeah.
is not necessarily coming in from your reach and acquisition. They're probably coming in conversion.
Yeah.
Cool. So who's doing that? We know that we need to identify people in our sphere group that are like our A pluses and they bring us business and we love them even more than we love everybody else. I'm not dropping them off, my $20 cookies. I'm probably bringing them a bottle of scotch or wine, those kinds of things. You elevate your game, you show them additional love and appreciation. Who is doing that and how are you doing it? So Steph has got her hand up at the back. We'll start there.
I do like a referral appreciation deal every month.
Okay.
So those that have referred me to somebody, they're just like specific groups that go on this wheel and I just do 5 themes a month.
Cool.
So like I'll do like a Halloween theme next year and it'll be like $20 something home set. And it'll just be like, I appreciate all of you that have referred me and you have a chance.
Oh, so it's a direct, like, kind of marketing piece to them and or,
Yeah.
like you're doing it as a direct communication, but they know that they're a part of this thing that you're doing.
Yeah.
Cool. Anyone else?
Well, if I get a referral from a different client, I do probably what most people do, send a thank you with a gift card. And then again, if it closes, another
Thank you.
reach out, yeah.
Anyone else? Online, anyone doing anything? I think that, I think it's really important that we do tell our sphere group, especially the people that we think fall into that pocket, that we would really like love and appreciate them passing. Like sometimes we forget to ask about that side of it. And I think that we probably all have a few extra people in there in that sphere group that would refer business to us if we sort of said to them, this is something I would really be honored if you would do. And the reason I think it's a bit of a gap is because when I look at any realtor social media page, everybody looks super busy, right? Everybody is busy. So if I was the client, like we forget what people think about our industry. We forget because we live and breathe it every day that the optics on the other side of the line aren't the same. And I don't know about you guys, but I have people that will message me and say, I know you're super busy. I've got a friend that's interested in buying. Do you have somebody in your team that could help them? And I'm like, no, I can help them. Right? But it's interesting how people are like thoughtful about, you know, you probably aren't even interested in this. It's just a little condo, or I've got somebody, but that's because I've clearly not done a good job at saying, I love business from all of you and refer me to your friends and family. That's what I want you to do. I want to work with somebody that this is the connection. So are we telling them that, and how are we communicating it? And I do not love personally the little, always like your referrals at the bottom of your email. Like, that's not heartfelt. That's not authentic. And it just feels salesy, right? But me phoning a client and saying, I loved working with you, and if you have anyone in your sphere that is anything like you, please give them your name. Or somebody that you think that I could help, please give them my name. And it becomes, you know, an authentic ask versus a salesy ask, right? So I think there's a great way to do it. And I do think we probably could get more business from that if we were a bit more thoughtful about the way we ask from our sphere group and our loyal group. Online, any additional comments or questions? A great point, Brent. I might have to add that into my presentation. Okay, so we're going to segue a little bit into one of my favorite topics, which I have decided to call the gap. It is this customer service disaster of a world that we live in. Everybody is so interested in cutting costs that they have eliminated customer service out of almost everything. And I notice it constantly because it's on my radar and it drives me nuts. It is when I'm at a grocery store and the till person is talking to another person about when their break is, or when they started, or how long they're working, and they're ringing through, I don't know, maybe I'm old school, but they're ringing through my groceries or whatever. And they're talking about themselves, and it's like common now, right? And you think about it, I mean, I know it's an environmental thing, but it's all the way to bagging your own groceries and bringing your own things, and like everything is set up as like a negative and a negative. Oh, you didn't bring your bags, it's 5 cents a bag. You know, oh, sorry, you're a busy person, and all of a sudden you just decided like you needed to grab groceries because you have 3 minutes right now, but you're being punished for, like, the customer service experience in every avenue is terrible. And it's all about bottom lines and bottom dollar, and how do we put more money in the company's jeans, and maybe it's about cost savings in terms of what we're paying for certain things, but I feel like it's less about that, because people still have money and people will pay, we know, for conveniences, right? They will. It's like airlines that made all the seats really small and then said, hey, guess what? So you're sitting in the seat that I barely fit in. Never mind, you know, any men out there can't fit in anything. And then it's like, but guess what? You could pay an extra 25 bucks and get a slightly bigger seat. So they took it away and now they sell it back to you. It's like infuriating. So the thing is, the reason it's my favorite topic is because the race to the bottom creates a massive gap on the top, right? And this is where I think we can get creative and thoughtful again. And the gap is like a fun place to play in. So the race to the bottom builds a bigger gap that now I don't even have to be that creative of what I add back in as added value, because there's so little value out there that I can add in like the dumbest thing and people are like, that's awesome, right? So it's like we don't have to be that creative anymore about it. It's just there. So I think there's an opportunity for this. I'm going to relate it back. We're going to talk about it in a higher level, but we can relate it back into real estate. You know, I remember, I think there's always been discount brokerages out there. When I started, I think there was one called Reflex, and it was all the same colors as Remax. A realtor that's still in the industry ran it. It was about a sort of a discounted model. It was really interesting because Remax was like all over it because it was red, white, and blue, and of course the name is closed. And it was all about sort of some discounted services. And it was sort of the first time we'd seen somebody come into the marketplace and offer like some competition in there. And from there, we've had so many things. Like the next big one was really Comfrey. right? Where all of a sudden they were just marketing, weren't a part of the MLS. They just had a really great website and people were like, I'll pay $500 for the sign and I'll go on this website. And they did a great job building out a website and people were going there and they could go save commission and go straight to the seller. And then of course they got licensed. So then they brought realtors in. And actually what's interesting if you think about it is they kept like adding in more value because they recognized what the original offering was, only had short staying power. It was like, oh, this is amazing. And then people are like, why isn't my house selling? Right? Okay, well, we'll add this so we'll add this extra piece in, and as it went, it you know, and it morphed into all these kinds of things, and then it died because it was so streamlined, and there's a booking center. I can't even get a hold of the seller anymore. I thought calling the seller was bad. Calling the call center was way worse, right? So they created this level of a low player in the marketplace. And I remember, like, that was 10 years ago probably, but I remember the agents coming in and having meetings and they were like, we're screwed. Why would anybody ever use a realtor? Our business is going to crash and burn. But what I've always said about it is I like it because now I created differentiation. Because the consumer, realtors in the eyes of the consumer, up until that point, we were all the same. We all charged the same. We all did the same thing. Technology didn't give us we didn't have all the tech things that we have now. So we all kind of offered basically the basic and maybe a little bit of differentiated, but you know, my biggest selling thing was like, I got a pager that's clipped on my hip all the time. And I'm going to get your messages all the time. And when I go on vacation, Ryan's going to take my pager and then the calls are going to come in and now Ryan's going to get them. And that was like the value add, right? Is that you can reach me 24/7. So the different players in the marketplace have created different levels and layers of abilities and it showcases it. So my favorite thing now when I go into an appointment, if somebody brings up a discount model or something like that, I have the ability to say, not all realtors' business is the same. And mine is this way because I offer full service and this is what my clients expect, but not everybody does that. So you've got to decide what you want. And so now I think the consumer, they don't get it enough, but they are getting it a little bit more generally, that there are different levels of service, especially the sellers get it more so than the buyers, but different levels of service, still different value propositions, different abilities, all of those kinds of things. And so I think the gap is an area that is important and good in our business because it does create a differentiator and allows us to play and say, this is where I sit and this is the client I want to attract. I don't want the client that's for sale by owner, that's going to be angry about every penny that they pay me and never appreciating of my hard work. It's not my client. Go call XYZ company. And there's lots of them out there now. And they come and burn and churn because James and I were chatting about this at the career night the other day. I actually had a really good question from one of the ladies that was here. She said, how many realtors are there in Edmonton? And we said, there's 4,600 agents. And she said, is there too many realtors for the market? And it was interesting because James knows the numbers really well. So we were talking about the total amount of transactions and, you know, each realtor needs a small wedge of those transactions, right? So it's, you know, we have actually a lower amount of realtors for the demographics in our area that we serve than a lot of communities. So our numbers are probably good. There's also probably 30% of the realtor population that is doing next to no or no business. So that drops those off right away. And then you have a big chunk that are kind of in that, probably that, who knows, right? 7, 8, 10, maybe they might get 12 to 15, but a big chunk in there. And then we all know in any business, this number comes up a lot, right? You have 80% doing 20% and even more, you have 80% of the business being done by 20% of the realtors. And if you even slim it further, you probably have 90% of the business being done by 10% of the realtors. But so James kind of gave a lot of the stats and stuff. And then while he was talking, I was thinking about the question, because I was like, it's a really good question. How many realtors do we need? Everybody knows a realtor. In fact, everybody knows like 5 realtors. So that's the challenge. Going back to why pick me? How do you stand out against, 5 people that somebody knows? And I said, I actually think the opportunity is what we're just talking about here right now, is the gap. There is a huge amount of our customer, the consumers out there, that population that don't understand the value in having a realtor on their team and what that service piece looks like. There's a lot of realtors that are burn and churn, get the deal done, yes, Greg, that's the perfect house for you, right on it, great, they don't have good negotiation skills, they're not bringing in risk mitigation into the process, and Greg, as the consumer, has no idea until all the things kind of go wrong and they say the transaction is terrible, and of course he's not want to hire a realtor again, because he's like, well, what was the point? But that's where there's a gap in our industry, is there's so many people out there doing bad business, that the opportunity comes from realtors that are doing good business and have a good value proposition and can share that and get people to say, that's what I want and want to work with. So when she asked that question, that was sort of what I said. I think there's room for good realtors offering good service, and raising the bar, because there's so many realtors coming in, signing up with brokerages that offer no support, no training. The realtors have no idea what's going on. They can't write a contract. They have no idea how to do any risk mitigation. And so it is pushing it down. I am fearful, as a total side note, that we will eat ourselves alive as an industry, because the discounts, the virtuals, which appeal to agents for lots of different reasons, even the recruiting models, which takes realtors away from selling real estate and into selling, moving people from brokerage to brokerage. The customer experience is going down and down and down. And we are teaching, not we, but the industry is teaching the consumers that realtors aren't as good as they used to be, don't really have any impact when I can't risk mitigate and help the client with scenarios. The client is leaving the situation going, why would I use a realtor next time? That experience offered zero value, or definitely not the value equated to what I paid. And so as realtors make those moves and transitions, they're teaching the consumer to expect less, and at a certain point, the consumer is gonna go, why? Why would I hire a realtor? So we're actually, as an industry, eating ourselves alive, in my opinion. So this customer service gap piece is an opportunity. And so, as I said already, the race to the bottom leaves space at the top, and that's where we get to hang out and play and be creative. So I'm going to break you guys into some smaller groups, and here's the conversation. Some of you have done this before. I don't know why this keeps stopping. I've got a list of 5 things here. I think that'll work. So I'm going to pick on these so this is what I did, is I picked things that I can't avoid, but that drive me nuts. And there's probably more. So airports and air travel is one. Grocery stores drive me nuts. Another. Restaurant experiences used to be amazing. Now, fast food, I don't go a lot, but when I do, I'm like, I don't get it. The order's wrong. I got somebody else's freaking coffee. My son wanted a sandwich with no cheese. There's cheese on it. Nobody cares when you go in. You know, those kinds of things. Call centers, we all know what that's like. You've been on hold for 2.5 hours and then get disconnected, even though they've taken your number down 10 times, nobody phones you back. Still waiting for Microsoft to call me back from last December. Nobody's calling me back. What I want us to do is exercise stretching our brains outside of what we've just become used to expecting. And so the goal here is to say, how do we add customer service and value back in? So I'm gonna go to grocery stores for a second, and just give you a couple examples so you guys can see what I'm talking about. And then I'm gonna try to figure out how to break my online people into some smaller groups there, and we'll assign these. So as an example, like I have to go to, well, I don't have to go to grocery stores. I could go and order on Instacart and pay more money to get my groceries, and there's a convenience there, so there's a place for that. But still not the best, like it works, but it's not great. So let's just have it going to grocery stores. I walk in and there's a Starbucks there, but let's say the Starbucks is free. What's that coffee cost though? $5? $6, $7, up to 10, let's say. I don't care if the bread costs 50 more cents and the milk's an extra $1. I got a free Starbucks. I don't want to shop. I'm busy. I might have 2 kids. I might have, you know, whatever's going on. I gotta get in and get groceries, but that store is offering free Starbucks. And not just like black coffee, like order your coffee. I'm gonna go back there. And now I'm walking around doing my grocery shopping, which makes me angry with a free coffee in my hand. I'm gonna go back. It makes the experience different. There is opportunities in all of these places to make the customer experience better, and we will pay for the convenience, we will pay for the experience, for sure we'll pay for the experience. And so we get stuck into like, this is just how it is and working through it. I mean, do you remember going to grocery stores a long time ago and they would bag your groceries for you and carry them out to your car? Like, that was great, right? So it's interesting. So what I want you guys to do in your groups is get creative. You have to be thoughtful of budget to some extent. Not everything is allowed, but if you're going to say we're doing something here, you know, be thoughtful. Is it a reasonable output of expenditures, generally speaking? Obviously, you don't know all the numbers, but generally speaking, to make it a good experience. And how would you enhance it even further if money wasn't an option? I was thinking about the other example I've given before, so I'll share it quickly and then you guys can dive into this. But there was a time when I haven't gone to the keg in quite a while, but the time I'd go to the keg and the wait would be like 45 minutes on a Saturday or Friday. I don't know if it's like that anymore. What is that wait like in that front room at the keg? And I'm talking about the one in the West End, just because they have a massive waiting area, which also is really interesting. Like it's like as big as the office is their waiting room. And everybody sits there for 45 minutes. Now they fixed it a little bit with pagers and things like that, so you can go do something and come back. But what if there was, and people go to the keg with, for a nice meal, sometimes they have kids, but what if there was some drinks being offered? What if there was appetizers being circled around? What if there was a balloon guy there making balloon things for the kids? What if there was a little musician playing like live music and they made their waiting area into kind of this little experience that was actually enjoyable? And then when I went to the keg, I was like, I hope we have to wait for 45 minutes so we can hang out in the waiting room. And how many more people would keep going? And what would the spend be like? Because they went in happy rather than being annoyed. So there's so many opportunities in here, and it's like fun to think how they could get creative and build those back out. And it's just everybody's gotten so small-minded. And honestly, like when I go to a restaurant and I get a $250 bill and it's not even been that good, my kids are kind of still hungry, and I'm like, why do we go here? I don't even get it. So how do we flip that? So I'm like, I don't mind spending this and I want to come back. So airports have lots of opportunity because they've cut it all away. Grocery stores have lots of opportunity because they've cut it all away. Restaurants are struggling with cost, but for sure, I think there's still opportunity. They just can't get out of their own way. Fast food restaurants, I don't know, maybe that's what you expect from fast food, but I still think there's opportunity there. And I put call centers on there too, because we all just bump into them all the time. Is there anything else that I missed on this list that's like a regular occurrence that we can't avoid in life, but we have to deal with? Okay, so what I think I'm gonna do is that table, I'm gonna give you call centers. Okay. My table right here, I'm gonna give you guys the restaurant one. And then airports, grocery, and fast food, I'm gonna see if I can stop share and do a breakout group with you guys online. Oh, and telling about.
Is it a single stall? I haven't ever been in the bathroom here.
It's a single stall. Okay, we need a bathroom break over here, so let's reconvene at 11:10. I think for my online folks, I'm gonna do 3 rooms. Is that enough? Okay, we'll reconvene at 11:10, assuming that gets you all through there.
To call people
Like
over.
a call
A
button.
call
I
button.
need something.
For
Yeah.
servers?
for service. And it doesn't matter like who, like your.
Okay,
assigned service, when you press the button, there's someone there.
I think also something that's important is like the price expectation. So like one thing I've like kind of stopped trying to complain about is like cheap lights. Just on a side note, because it's super freaking cheap, so it's like.
Yeah, I'm just gonna interrupt everybody for one quick second, because I know you guys are already having some discussions here in the room, but I do need to do the breakout for the group online. And so I think you guys are good in the room here in terms of what your topics are. I don't know who's gonna go where online, because I'm just gonna let the program automatically assign you rooms. So you guys, the topics that I already assigned out were dining in restaurant and call center. So we have airports, fast food, and grocery stores left. So the 3 online groups, once you get divided up, pick one of those 3 topics. And you guys have 10 minutes to create an amazing experience that will make me want to come back or call into the call center or whatever it is. And we're gonna assign those groups, and then I'll pull everybody back at 11:20. And we will have 10 minutes to share, and then we will let you guys all go. All right?
So my point is, I think price should be consideration, right? If it's gonna be inexpensive, then the
Okay,
But the.
you all are.
You don't want to
It's
feel
very
like you're just a
difficult.
number, I guess.
How are we
What a
gonna,
question.
okay, guys, I'm gonna
do
call
the
now.
I wanna start a restaurant.
I didn't. This table for sure did not have enough time. Okay, before we start here, I'm just going to really quickly, if you, most of you guys got your cameras online, I'm gonna just take a real quick picture of you guys, because I'm gonna just do a little post if you're good with that. And it's much nicer when everybody's looking at the camera, so are you guys good? Put your best faces on. Thank you, okay. Okay, and I'll do this table before you guys go. Okay, so I don't know what happened in the breakout rooms, because I didn't visit them, but I know there was lots of good conversation here. It is interesting once you start to unpackage all the things that drive us nuts, and how kind of easily some of them are to solve, right? But it does come back down to a little bit of this bottom line piece, which is a bottom dollar piece, which can be frustrating, but I think there's a balance. So I want to hear a little bit of a Cole's notes from each group. So we'll start with the group in the room. I need somebody at the back table that can maybe actually even just come forward a little bit closer so the guys online could hear. So who's gonna just do a little summary from our group back there?
Melissa.
Oh, I saw that happen.
Okay, Melissa's just gonna come, even if you just stand at the end of the table, you're good, then that way they can hear you. Okay, so what did your group do?
So we had call centers.
Call center? Okay.
So we made some good discussions over there. We talked about like maybe having an option like, oh, put your name down and they will actually call you back. But we said they would schedule a time to call you back. So, oh, we'll call you at 2 p.m. tomorrow. Perfect. Then you can make your times to have that instead of, oh shit, now it's the middle of the afternoon. I'm in an appointment already and now they're calling me back. And now I missed it and now we're back to square one. So we said that. We said if you actually maybe had, now obviously this is more like staff and training kind of thing. So when you get through to someone, it's like, oh yes, I can actually help you with that. Not, oh, we have to transfer you to a different department. Like just train your staff better to have a better understanding of maybe like the customer's problems instead of like, oh, we don't know. That's. Yeah. What else did it- Oh, yeah, and then if you're like having a challenge and it's taking a very long time, maybe they're actually offering you like, oh, I'm sorry you had to wait so long for some help. Here's $50 or like whatever. I maybe $5.
Here's a million.
If you call 3 times and they haven't helped you and now you're super frustrated, that usually they're just like, sorry for the inconvenience. Bye, you know, and like, or they can get disconnected, so it's like, well, can you have some sort of incentive to like, you know, work together on getting this solved, so.
Good.
Yeah, and then we said just proper training, so that's like the problem solving, maybe the actual language thing, so maybe, oh, I would actually prefer to be serviced in Spanish, so awesome, we have people from that region who can help with that, so kind of connecting those a little bit and then getting maybe people matched to people who can actually help them easier.
My favorite thing you said is the times, the
scheduling.
If I had to call, I have utility bills sitting on the office in the Edmonton office that I've got a phone. If I could go online and pick the time, put my phone number in, put it in my calendar, know somebody was gonna call me tomorrow at 2 p.m. Call centers become an entirely different thing. That's cool. Yeah, awesome. Good work. Thank you. Okay, let's go to this table here, and remind us what you're talking about, and then give us a little summary or quick little recap on your top 2 or 3 or 4 things. So who wants somebody doing this?
You taking notes.
See Wendy taking notes, so it seems
Yeah, we
like,
didn't get very far, but ours was restaurants and what we would do to make it better. We got door greeters, so somebody to greet you at the door when you walk in,
Open the
welcome
door.
you,
Actually,
open the door,
for you.
welcome you. And I'm adding this, maybe give you a quick update as to what the status is in the restaurant as far as wait times or whatever. A server in the wait area that can take drink orders, samples, and again, more communication. And then we got as far as when they seat you to serve you immediately or to make contact immediately, so they know you're there, you know that they see you're there, and food quality. But ultimately, so you don't feel like you're just a number when you walk in, that you're somebody, a valued customer coming in for a service.
and restaurants are interesting because it is one of the biggest, like people go out to eat for an experience. I don't call this call center to have an experience. I gotta get some shit done, but I go to a restaurant for an experience. So there's the most room in restaurants to create an experience because it's a customer service and experience. Like I'm going there for a night out. I'm going there for a reason. So there's lots of, I heard lots of ideas here. So I appreciate that you guys did dive a lot deeper, and it's a long conversation, right? There's lots that you could do.
There's tons.
Okay, cool. Once you get past complaining about all the things that drive you nuts about going to restaurants, right? Okay, so I made a note of who went. I didn't set the groups, they went online, so, or they just went automatically. So Brent, Daniela Hayden, and our JDC team were in a group together. So who is going to share what you picked and a couple comments from that?
I was voluntold, so I will do that very quickly. We talked about airports and came to the conclusion that everything with airports is wrong. So, just to like summarize, like drop-off zones, we feel like could be a lot better. Like it's an emotional time for lots of people. Like you're saying goodbye or saying hello when you're getting picked up. So it sucks that it's like a huge rushed process and there's always traffic jams and all that. So that could be a lot better. The check-in process, like when you're checking in for flights, QR codes are great, but it would still be great to have people around, like almost there when machines are not working. Because I notice in airports now it's like all QR codes and there's like one person there to help if anything is wrong. Like again, it goes with the no customer service thing. It's all about what's quick and easy instead of what is actually beneficial. And then security, we talked about like having more room to kind of do things as you're waiting. Sort of like what you mentioned, like in the lobby area, make it more of like an experience while you're waiting instead of just like standing in line for half an hour. Like have a liquid zone where you can dispose as you're waiting in line, and like have unpacking zones where you can have time to take your laptop out before you actually get to like the scanner and stuff like that. And then we also talked about like restaurant availability in the airport. Like if you have an after hours flight, you're kind of stuck with Starbucks and no other options. So it'd be good to have like somewhere where all of that availability can be found, so you know what to kind of expect. And I think that was the Coles notes. Yeah.
There's so many opportunities.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, and even as you've talked about things, I'm like, you're right, that does piss me off, and I haven't even put that on my radar. So that's fun. Okay, good, I like it. Okay, my next group was Amanda, David, and Sham. What did you pick, and who is presenting?
Not sure who's presenting, but I will just go. So we also chose airports, and we had time to discuss and come up with 3 points. Although there was lots of good points already brought up. We felt that there should be a training initiative for every single employee for a new policy that would improve communication and deliver a higher level of comfort. For example, just even starting with a smile, and that would treat humans like people instead of cattle.
Yes.
Bar's
Yeah.
real love.
And then, so that, I mean, that goes all the way through the entire time that you're in an airport to when you get on a plane. And then the second point was hiring airport representatives or / liaisons, and they would be airport staff, not hired or on staff from the airline, but they work for the airport, and they would be there for people, for example, when they arrive at the airport, wondering where they go, and if it's an unfamiliar airport, just improving their experience by helping them and ushering them through the entire process. And then the third point was an improved administrative process for this is good and bad at certain times, and it varies with different airlines, but having an improved administrative process for baggage check-in and seat selection that is a collaborative effort between every single airline and the airport, and it's all the same.
Cool. I like it. Like, again, as you talk, right, there's so many opportunities to raise the bar. And do you remember when travel, like before our time, back was an experience? And it was like very, yes, it was fancy and, you know, and now it's just like grunge and everything is dirty and it's, you're right, smile, like something so simple. So, Sham, I saw you, pull your, you put yourself on speaker there. Do you have a couple things to add?
Well, in a nutshell, Dave was really eloquent with summarizing everything. I think I think always humanity before craft. I think that's very important. I think letting people know, you know, they say, I think it was Bernard Shaw. He said the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has in fact taken place. So the problem with that is that we're always speaking for ourselves and we're never speaking for the recipient. That's why we got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice and speak once, right? But in a nutshell, what we were talking about is that that smile piece is so important to humanizing the experience to somebody who is already uncomfortable within that space. And to also, that communication piece is so important to let people know while they're smiling, this is my name, this is who I am, I'm Sham. You are now in blah, 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 and this is what we're going to be doing here in the next few minutes. That's it. It's so simple. People are comforted with that. And I think the airport itself, in a nutshell, because of the lack of communication, I think they bring about a feeling of being frantic themselves. And they put that on to the passengers. So at the end, at the epicenter, it's all about communication, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably a lot of what we're talking about comes back to that for sure. So.
Oh, and by the way, for the people with the restaurants, only because I love that topic so much. I mean, that was my world many years ago. The Papellas would know this as well. We shared this a lot. I would always, when I was training waiters, I would always say to them, guys, think about this for a second. I could serve my own ass shitty food at home with a bad attitude without a smile for free. Why would I put my butt in this chair in the first place? Like, give somebody a good reason to get in the car to put their bums in these chairs. And what would that be? This is your area of business for tonight, right? So, I mean, that's kind of a joke. I'm being funny here, guys. But that's the whole idea. I mean, it's actually so simple to figure out, right?
It is. That's the thing, is nothing we're talking about is really that complicated. Look how many ideas we've already come up with. So for time, I know we're just a few minutes over. I'm going to give Christy and Leslie, who ironically automatically got put into a group together. I don't know how that happens, but hopefully you both were able to chat a little bit. I'm not sure if Leslie was there. Were you sitting on your own, Christy, or is Leslie there with you? Okay. So share with us what you picked and what you came up with.
Funny enough, we picked airports as well. We were talking more about like the waiting experience, like once you've checked in and stuff. It would be nice, like again, it's just so like cattle, you know, you're just like from here to here to here. And we were thinking like, why not make those, like when you're waiting for your flight, make those chairs are so like gross and stuffy, and like have like kind of fold out beds or something, because you could be waiting for hours and hours, and kind of like just like a more like a better feeling waiting area, instead of like these rows and rows of people that are just like kind of all staring at each other. We also thought it might be like if each airline could have like a place to leave your carry-on luggage. So when you have to go to the bathroom or you want to get up and get a drink, you're not bringing your carry-on luggage everywhere with you, because it's so expensive to check everything now these days. So it's like just kind of maybe make it a little bit different that way. Like we were also thinking, you know, because you are there for so long, offer services like manicures, pedicures, you know, like once you're there already. So something that like just to give you, I don't know, just more of a feel that you're getting some service.
Can you imagine if you get like a manicure or pedicure at the airport, you would be early.
Exactly.
My flight's at 2, but I'm gonna go 10. And I'm, you know, like it's an experience. That's fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I think like again, it's just communication too. Like that was kind of what, like, it's more, I feel like the bottom line of all of these stories is about having communication, and that obviously can relate back to our own businesses.
Yeah. And that's great. Thank you. So lots of ideas, obviously more could come the more time you spend on it. I think the point in this is to sort of get out of our own way sometimes. Not everything has to come with big cost. I think that's a really important piece of this is, yes, fine, some of the things we've talked about do hit bottom line and cost more, but there's lots of things that you guys could do that actually don't, and it is communication's free. We can get better at that very easily. And then there's some small things that we can put in. So I like the exercise. It's fun to get out of our everyday space and think about somebody else's. I'll leave you with that. My hope is that you would take that scenario, what we just did, and do it to your own business, to unpackage the things that you offer to a client and use that in that value proposition piece to really elevate the bar and make your client's experience better, and figure out where you might be short-sighted on offerings that perhaps you could put back in. And so it's a good exercise. It's fun, gets us thinking differently, and that's why we did it. So hopefully I'm gonna end now. We're just a few minutes over. I really appreciate everybody sticking around. And hopefully got some good takeaways, and then we'll wrap up this little series with a finale next week, which is at a different time and day. So I will resend a reminder on that. And I don't know what we're gonna talk about yet, but it will continue to be on this road that we're on. And if you have any comments or questions, feel free to reach out. A couple people asked about slides and stuff, so if you do want me to, I think most of you got what you needed, but if somebody needs something, let me know. And otherwise, have a fantastic Thursday. Thank you for joining. Can I grab a quick picture of this? Oh, I got the other one.
All right, thanks. Bye, guys.